of that kind of thing. So I'll give you an example of what he allegorizes. I've told you this before. In Galatians, he allegorizes the issue of the fact that there were two sons. There were two sons of Abraham, Ishmael and Isaac. And he wants to claim that Christians are the sons of Sarah, the freeborn woman, as he puts it in Galatians 4. Freeborn, why? Because they're free of the law, free of the Mosaic law. The new Christians are free of the Mosaic law. So he takes the word free and allegorizes it. Then he takes the word slave, Hagar's son, she's the slave woman, and then he takes a passage from Genesis, throw out the slave woman that Sarah says, and he says, that's what you should do. That's what, therefore, throw out the slave woman. But the slave woman in his allegory is slavery to the law of Moses and Sinai. And he says, I think it's either Moses or Sinai is Hagar. Yeah, Moses or Sinai is a Hagar. And the Jews are the sons of Hagar. Now, look, you can do it. That's great. But that's not fair to the material that you're dealing with. We've just dealt with the material. It's fair in an allegorical way, if you can do anything allegorically that you want. I'll give you another example of what he does. In Corinthians, he has Moses in the tent of meeting where I've told you this, where his face is irradiated. These are my two favorite examples, but he does hundreds of things like this. He's a very slippery sort of character where exegesis goes in this regard. And he's in the tent of meeting, and Moses' face is irradiated, like the story here, because he's in the presence of God, and he puts a veil over his face so the people won't be burned by contact with him. When he comes out, he's so irradiated. Okay, it's a legend. I'm not saying it's a real story, but in any case, Paul says, oh yes, allegorizing it, the reason he put a veil over his face is he didn't want the people to see that the light of the law had gone out. In other words, Moses is a charlatan who's cheating the people and doesn't want them to know that the light of the law has gone out because Jesus Christ has been born. Well, you know, all that is all very facile exegesis. It flies in places where people don't know anything about Scripture and only listen to the, sermonizer or the person who's expounding it in his own tendentious way, but it's not what the original text said in any way, shape, or form. So that's what I mean. If you don't like the original text, don't use it. But it's not fair to use it unfairly. That's what I'm saying. You don't want to circumcise, fine, don't circumcise. But don't then claim that you're heir to the covenant that says the covenant, the sign of the covenant is circumcision. You follow me? That's what bothers me. I don't care if a person's circumcised. I don't care if a person eats clean or kosher foods or doesn't eat kosher food. That's all well and good. But don't say you're using a tradition when you're not. That is, don't take bits of it throughout the rest. That's my issue. I'm happy with Christianity, and I'm happy it's a beautiful religion, but it shouldn't take stuff that it claims to be part of its heritage and just throw it away. When it says here, this is a ceremony in perpetuity. You can't take a passage and say, oh, it's not a perpetuity anymore. Then you're not operating within the text. Okay, leave it at that. You can deal with it. The other side we've heard for 2,000 years, so I'm not worried that the other side isn't going to be heard. You know what the normal side of this whole thing is, and you can take or leave it. But here it's very clear. Everyone has to be circumcised. You can't eat. Oh, by the way, the New Testament takes us, don't break a bone in it. So then when Jesus is on the cross, they apply this passage, a bone shall not be broken in it, therefore don't break the bones of his legs. In other words, they take all these things out of context here, apply it to other things, and then miss the context, which is circumcision. So you just take one thing out and forget the rest. That's what I'm saying is really weird. And most people, they never go back and check on the scriptural passages. But since I'm doing the scriptural passage, you see the context. Every male must be circumcised over and over and over again. Non-native born and native born. No uncircumcised person may take part in this. But it applies to the stranger and the resident among. It's harsh, I agree. I'm not advocating it. I don't say people should be part of this. But don't take part of it throughout the rest. if you know, if you feel that you're entitled to do that with other people's culture. That's a matter of something to decide for yourself. Never mind. You always said to Moses, consecrate all the firstborn to me, and so on and so forth. Keep this day, line 3, as a remembrance to me, how the power I shown when I brought you out of slavery, and that's real slavery, not slavery to the law, as Paul wants to make it out to be. That's slavery in Egypt, not slavery to the law of Moses. This book is for the law of Moses, not against the law of Moses. Again, I don't observe the law of Moses, I have to tell you, so don't worry. I have no axe to grind for the law of Moses. I just have an axe to grind for respecting literature in its entirety and not, you know, chopping it to pieces and taking the parts that you like, throwing out the other stuff. Yeah.
Could it be considered as a changing revelation, just as Muhammad had changed the prayer from Jerusalem?
Well, yeah, I mean, look, Paul's doing whatever he likes. We'll do that in a historical Jesus class. Next year I'm not doing a historical Jesus class. We'll deal with that. But the point is that what I'm trying to sure it's a change, and Paul is doing whatever he wants. But do we think that, you know, is it, again, can you take from the literature part of it and then do away with the other part of it because it's inconvenient to you? That's the only question I'm asking.
Isn't that what Muhammad did?
Well, I'm not saying Muhammad is legitimate to what he's doing. Yes, I've already compared Paul and Muhammad are two sides of the same coin. They're using exactly the same technique. Yeah, as you see, we showed that in the Islam class.
Right.
Muhammad does exactly what Paul does in terms of the Abraham figure. But that's another thing. I have to move along, but anyway, just you think about that. Don't feel you need to accept my view. My view is out there just to challenge you to think about these things, because I think that nobody ever challenges anyone to think about these things. And it's people should be honest about these things. If you have a problem with it, you should say it. And that's what I'm trying to do, because I don't have much time teaching left, and I feel that you should say it. And students, to me, are the best way to communicate with. They don't have to accept what you say, and they shouldn't. But at least you challenge them to think about that. They go home, and then 6 months from now, a year from now, they'll ponder about it and decide what is correct, what is just, what is the righteous thing to do. And they'll be able to talk to a priest or a rabbi or an imam. I hope my Islamic students can talk to their imams. You see, I don't observe the rabbinical thing. I'm not going to, there's no conversion here.
Yeah,
anyone who's with it is part of it. And rabbis who want to go out and say, oh, we have to do this, that, and the other thing, that's all their own invention. You know,